welcome. We can't express how absolutely delighted we are to have you all join us, and some very dear old friends. It's just wonderful. And as Jyotish said, this is our 54th. The first ones were up at the meditation retreat in the Temple of Leaves. Then we did them, but when we moved our retreat down here, we would do them pretty much where we are now, but it was just leaves. So the bigger Temple of Leaves. And just then we would have them in the amphitheater. And it's just amazing, isn't it? To see how God just you keep with him, and he gives you more than you could possibly even imagine. And that's what we're going to be talking about this week, actually. The theme of the week is living the wisdom of Paramhansa Yogananda. And by the way, in preparing for the class, we kind of dive deep in one of our books, one of Crystal Clarity's books, The Essence of Self-Realization, the Wisdom of Paramhansa Yogananda. Swami wrote this. It was all from notes that he took when he was with Master. And it's just really a remarkable book. I don't think there's anything anywhere like it. So I do recommend it. So we'll be talking this week about living the wisdom of Paramhansa Yogananda. This morning, Jyotish and I will focus on the 8 expressions or aspects of God as Master described them, and then particularly focusing on wisdom, because at the end of the morning talk, we'll be having a book signing of our latest book, Touch of Divine Wisdom, out in the foyer. So we'll be focusing on that. But the classes throughout the week, they'll be from the Wisdom of Yogananda series, how to find happiness, how to be a success, how to deal with life's changes, how to spiritualize your life. And then on Saturday, we'll have a panel talking about, more personally, how I have lived the wisdom of Paramhansa Yogananda. So it should be a marvelous week, not to mention Kriya initiations and Indian banquets and our master Indian storyteller Morley Venkatraya from Seattle, who will be coming to share wonderful stories at the Indian banquet. So just be ready. And I noticed a friend in the front row has a wonderful t-shirt on that says, "Slow down and look around." And I highly recommend that you do that this week. Slow down and look around. Look at the beauty of nature, look at the beauty of other devotees, and feel God's presence within you, because that's why we've come together. So, more?
No, but we have a nice, fun little visual, and Devi will tell you the story of it while I'm getting it ready.
Okay. We have a wonderful, and I hope you're listening, Ellie, a wonderful member of our Ananda virtual community, which has members all over the world. More than, I think, between about 350 people are part of it. And we did a satsang with them a month or so ago. And in gratitude, this woman, Ellie Goodwin, thank you, Ellie Goodwin, sent us, she was part of the virtual community, and she asked some questions and we responded. And she sent us this gift afterwards. And it was something she had made. And as soon as Jyotish assembles it, well, you'll see what it is. But we realized, in gratitude to Ellie Goodwin, we are going to use this gift as props for talking about the 8 aspects of God. And you will see why and how right now.
Now we've got it wants to spread out because this is a little bit too,
What?
I'm trying to figure out how we can keep it from...
Just turn it around and we'll add the last one last.
All right. So much for the well-laid plans. things that work at home don't necessarily. So we'll start row by row.
These are the 8 aspects of God that we'll be talking about that Ellie made for us, not knowing we were going to be talking about this. So there's power and peace and calmness and light and sound and love.
I feel like I'm in a kid's game here.
That reminds me, once we were visiting Jyotish's family, and his nephew Mikey we were all talking, all the adults around the table, and Mikey was about 5, and he was stacking blocks, and they kept getting higher and higher and higher, and we just kept talking. And then the thing started swaying. It was very big. And everyone stopped talking and was watching. Yay! And then Mikey had 1 block left. And the tower was swaying like that. And we were just all watching like that. And he would put it up. And then he'd put it up. He took it down, then finally he held it and he said, "Ta-da!" And we called that the Mikey principle. Because if Napoleon had known the Mikey principle, he would have, before he got to, Moscow, he would have said, "Ta-da!" And so anyway, you can see it runs in his family.
Oh, no, leave
Oh, you leave those there. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so Devi is going to...
Now, Jyotish's part of the talk was not to stack those things, but as you will see later. Okay.
I feel kind of like Vonda White in that game show.
Okay, so reel it in. Okay, so what we're going to just touch on very briefly what Master says in essence of self-realization about these different characteristics of God, starting with power. Power is not the way we think of it in human terms, like I am going to conquer the world and I am more important than you. Power is the innate energy of the universe, of the cosmos that created, as Master's poem, Samadhi, the burning furnaces of creation and the volcanoes, and it's that power, but it's also the divine force which lives in each one of us. That beautiful poem of Master from Metaphysical Meditations, "What is this life flowing in my veins? Could it be other than divine?" Hi, Matthew. Someone made a chant out of it, and but it's that power that flows through us and within us, without us, and it helps us. The more we awaken that power within us, the more we feel our unity with the power all around us. So then peace we come to, and there's 2 that seem similar, peace and calmness, but Master differentiates. He says, peace is an early meditative experience, and I think we've all had that, where we begin to feel, you pull away from all the demands and uncertainty of daily life, and you just sit to meditate, even for beginners. I remember the very, very first time in this lifetime I sat to meditate in a campus church in Madison, Wisconsin. I walked out and I said, it's all inside. And that peace that comes from quieting the mind is a state that is an aspect of God. But calmness, on the other hand, is a choice. Calmness is how we respond moment by moment. It's a dynamic choice to not get ruffled by all the changes in life. We'll talk about this more later. Swami Kriyananda was an unbelievable example of this. No matter what was going on around him, that incredible centeredness. And now, it's your turn.
Moving on to the second row, which is light and sound. These are the vibrations by which God has created the universe. And so, as Lahiri Mahashaya explained it, God, beyond creation, is pure, intelligent, dynamic, joyful, ever-existing consciousness. And then that consciousness takes a small part of itself and it sets it into vibration. And that vibration, in turn, creates everything that we see around us. It creates the universe. Think of the vibration as the energy of the atomic structure and the subatomic structure. So that vibration, and that vibration, even on a physical plane, if you take a string, let's say a wire, and you pluck that, you might hear a sound from it. Let's say you have a guitar string, you pluck it, you hear the note of C. If you were able to, that's because that guitar string is moving in a wave-like motion from being plucked, and so that produces a sound. If you were able to move it fast enough so that that wave-like motion became faster and faster, that same string would become light. It would produce a visible light. And so all of the universe is created out of vibration. Now this is important because we are attempting to get out of creation. We're attempting to get back to our unity with God, and therefore we need to follow the pathway of creation back. And so if we listen to the sound of Om in meditation, it's one of our primary meditation techniques. If we listen to that sound vibration itself, remember, is created out of the intelligence of God. And so it has contained within us the intelligent vibration that will draw us back gradually out of the various levels of creation. The same with light. We meditate by focusing at the spiritual eye. We do that because the spiritual eye contains in it the light of consciousness. Call the spiritual eye the doorway to the consciousness of God. It's there that we will first completely experience God in vision or in samadhi, and it is from there that we will exit the physical form in order to reunite with God.
Then we come up to our next row, love and joy. And actually that top triad, Master said that of all the aspects of God, those are the three that he manifested the most: love, joy, and wisdom. And so love, we need to understand, is not just human emotions. It's not a sentiment, a feeling. Love, like all these other things we've been talking about, is a divine power. And the ability to love is a God-given gift. And the more we understand the source of that love is God, it's not the people in our lives, the more we are able then to redirect that feeling of the heart back to its source in God. And the more we do that, the more we feel the purpose for which we incarnated, to feel that unity, to feel that tenderness, to feel that concern moment by moment in our lives. And sometimes it's good just to sit in meditation and remind yourself, where am I not complete? Where am I not whole? What's missing? And like I read a wonderful quote that said, there is a God-shaped hole in the middle of everyone's heart. And to fill that with his love And that's what makes us whole. That's what makes us complete. That's what makes us free. Because then we're not dependent on the fluctuations of people, of events, circumstances. So to understand love is an impersonal force that is always accessible. And all of the saints speak of it. That wonderful quote from the French Catholic saint, I believe Saint Jean Vianney, if you only knew how much God loved you, you would die from joy. Try to remember how much God loves you when you're feeling alone, when you're feeling misunderstood, when you're feeling confused. Hearken back to how much God loves you. And that's why Master's preferred image of God was the Divine Mother, because the mother, as he said, is closer than the father. The father's impersonal, the father is more manifest, the wisdom aspect, which Jyotish will come to in a moment. But that love aspect of God, if that was all we had, that aspect of God would be complete. And then joy, again in Samadhi, from joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I melt again. And just to, joy in a way is, and I'll say this, and you may think it's a bit strange to say, in a way, joy is a safer approach to God than even love, because sometimes love, we can over-personalize it. But, oh, does he love me yet? Did I do something wrong? Has he withdrawn my love from me? She or he withdrawn their love from me? But joy is radiant in all of creation, and it's the essential nature of who we are. And then the final capstone of the pyramid, and it's what we will continue talking about this morning, is wisdom.
Good. In fact, Master said that the most important of all of these qualities is joy. He said even love, the reason that we want to experience love is because it gives us joy. And so he said that because that is part of our essential nature. Where Master also said that these are the aspects of God upon which we should meditate. He defined meditation as deep concentration on God or on one of these 8 aspects. And so in meditation, it is a very good practice. Usually we, as I said earlier, meditate on delight or meditate on sound. But these other qualities, if you feel peace, try to go into that peace and feel it more and more deeply. And in fact, Master said that whatever one of these vibrations you feel, don't leave it contained just in a little bubble. Try to go into it deeply and expand it until it expands out into infinity. Because he described these as the doorways through which we will be able to understand, or not understand with the mind, to actually realize the nature of God and ultimately, obviously, the nature of our own true self. So these 8 aspects of God are very important, and we do need to really focus on them in meditation. It's a very good practice, and we should actually put these things into practice. I just want to stop here and have a footnote and thank Sundara. Yesterday, he gave Sunday service, a beautiful Sunday service, but he talked about a story that we have told about a friend of ours who had to travel through a very difficult time, very late at night, a difficult time. She had to take the bus through a difficult area of San Francisco, and it frightened her, single woman. And after exploring other avenues, then Swami said, well, if you can't find any other way to get home late at night, then when you get on the bus, concentrate on one person, find one person, and pray for that person during the entire trip home. And after 2 weeks, she came and said, Swamiji, that ride home has become my favorite part of the day. Well, probably all of us have heard the story. Or many of us, I shouldn't say all, many of us have heard that story. How many of us have applied it? That's why I want to thank Sundara, because he said that he was experiencing some real strong anxiety because of, on a plane ride, a lot of turbulence on the plane ride. He remembered this story and applied it. He began to pray for one of the passengers on the plane, and in praying for it, he completely forgot himself, and all the fear and anxiety just melted as if it weren't there. So we hear these truths, but we have to apply the truths. Master said you can go to a guru and he can tell you what to do, but if it's like going to a doctor and he writes out a prescription, you bring that prescription back and you frame it and hang it up on the wall. It's not going to do anything to change you. So we have to apply these things in our life, which brings us to wisdom. So what is wisdom? Well, we gave the short explanation, but now you're going to get a much longer explanation. So there's a dictionary definition of wisdom, which generally is to be able to discern, to go deeply into something, to see the connections, to have good judgment. And so that dictionary definition of wisdom has, one might say, the peak of the iceberg, because it does have some wisdom in it, but it is contained to the world of illusion. And so no matter how well you're able to walk around in the world of illusion, it doesn't get you out of illusion. So the typical definition of wisdom, dictionary definition, or what people would commonly tell you if you ask them what is wisdom, basically is part of this dream. And in the dream, no matter what kind of definition you have, that is going to be contained within the dream nature of the dream. And when you wake up in the morning, that definition may seem wacky to you. Oh, that was funny. But in the dream, it does seem real. So the ability to discern with the mind and to be clever. We think of Swami or Master, oh, they were so wise. Why were they wise? Well, they could write so many books, and they could speak different languages, and they traveled so well. And we kind of take wisdom and we crunch it down to something that's understandable. Reminds me, we've probably all seen the picture of Master. I'm not sure where he is, but he's in an overcoat and he has a little dog in the pocket. I'm not sure whether that dog is real or whether it's a stuffy. But anyway, it's a little dog with its head poked out of Master's pocket. And everybody sees that, says, oh, isn't that cute? Oh, that's my favorite picture. Was not Swami's favorite picture. He, in fact, didn't like that picture very much because he didn't want us to think of Master as a personality of, aw, isn't he cute? Here's somebody united with the wisdom of the entire universe, and we scrunch him down to, "Aw, isn't he cute?" So when we relate to these masters, we have to get beyond their personality and beyond their activities, and so because those things do not define who they are. In fact, they aren't definable, but nonetheless, our job is to see what their consciousness is and try to model our lives after their consciousness. So then, if the dictionary definition of wisdom doesn't work, what do the masters have to say about it? Well, in the Gita, it says, wisdom is to be non-identified with anything except the self. Lahiri Mahashaya put it really well. He said, wisdom is the knowledge that you are the soul and that the soul is unified with God. That's wisdom, period. Everything else is a lessening degree of wisdom. So Swami also goes on to say that true wisdom is to hold on to that consciousness of the soul's true nature, to be able to understand it. I keep using the word, that's part of the problem of English language, to be able to experience it as your own reality, and to be able to hold on to that wherever you go. So if you can hold on to the fact that you're the soul and not this physical body, the ego is that soul that thinks it's the body and the personality is oh so cute because it's got a dog poking out of its pocket. So the soul has all of the qualities of the entire consciousness of God. But as it comes into any single incarnation, it takes on, one might say, a coding of what's in that incarnation. It brings from the past its tendencies. All of the karma is every action that you have ever done. Karma means action. It's every action that you have ever done. Action is also thought, emotion, feeling, but everything that you have ever done, good, bad, indifferent, from the past of probably millions of incarnations, everything that you've done in this lifetime, and everything that you will do in the future. That's karma. So it isn't just a little thing, it's the summation of all of that. And that karmic tale that we bring with us begins to, in this lifetime, it becomes the, one might say, coding of the soul as it takes on a personality. Swami Kriyananda put it beautifully. He said, the ego, the soul identified with the personality and the body and the senses, the ego is a bundle of self-definitions. Your particular self-definitions will vary from everyone else in creation. And it is because you have this complex history of different activities, thoughts, emotions, all of that. All of it bundled together creates a kind of a trail of tendencies that we deal with in this life. Then we come into this life, and then there are other influences in this life. First of all, the age in which we're born is an enormous tendency. If we were born in the 5th century, we would be constrained in our thinking in a very different way than we are now. Another influence is the country in which you're born, and then the community in which you find yourself, and then finally the family in which you grow up. And so all of those influences, plus now as adults, all the cultural influences around us, all of that has a tremendous impact and a tremendous influence on our minds. And what is wisdom? It's only one thing. We're trying to get beyond all of that and get back to the understanding that I am a soul, and my soul nature, I am one with God, to experience that. Master tells a number of different stories about it, but one I read just recently was about a young man named Naresh. And he goes to a guru and wants to have training. And so he arrives, and the guru says, "Who are you?" And Naresh says, "Well, I'm Naresh, son of Satish, and I'm 18 years old, and I come from this little village outside of Coimbatore." And the guru says, "But who are you?" And Naresh says, "Well, I'm 18 years old, and I've finished my schooling, and I have 3 siblings, and I have done this kind of work." And the guru says, "Who are you?" And Naresh now is beginning to think that he's come to a senile guy because he's just not getting it, you know. And so he goes on in this vein, and the guru finally looks at him and says, "Well, since you don't know who you are, it's good that you've come here." And so he tells Naresh to begin to meditate on the question of who am I? It was also one of the Ramana Maharshis. That was one of his primary techniques, just to meditate on the question of who am I? And so Naresh began to meditate on that, and he realized that he wasn't who he was just because he was 18 years old, or because he had a father who did certain things, or a village, that he was still himself if he'd been born in another village. And he started taking away layer after layer. It's a very good practice to do. Meditate on who am I. But you should also add a little wrinkle to it. You should not just ask, who am I? You should ask, who am I before I came into this body? Who am I after I leave this body? Because the tendency of investigating who am I will tend to lead you down to the thinking about the tendencies and the activities and the likes and dislikes and the personality and so on that you have in this life. But you've got to peel away that, because this life is just one of, well, Master said it takes a long, long, long time. That's all I'll say. Anyway, tens and tens of thousands of lifetimes. And so this is just one little, so the little sliver that we have in this lifetime, that's the starting point for the investigation of who am I. And so Naresh was meditating on that and going deeper and deeper. And then the guru came one day and said, "Who are you?" And Naresh looked at him and said, "I don't know, but I'm working on it." And so the guru left him alone. And then after a long time, the guru came back and said, "Who are you?" And Naresh says, "I know, but there are no words to express it." And then the guru said, now we have much to discuss. And so that wisdom really is only the realization of who we are. It's nothing else. Wisdom is not, as most people think, having a bright intellect, being able to discern things and being able to really figure it out. When Swami came to Master, Swami had an extremely lucid and clear intellect. When he came to Master, Master kind of brushed that aside. He said, "You're too intellectual. get devotion. And because Swami has also said, Master has said, that wisdom comes from a combination of discernment or discrimination and feeling. Pure discrimination and pure feeling combined bring wisdom. But Swami went on to say even more strongly, he said that it is a trap to think that you can figure things out. He said one of the ways the ego traps us is by us thinking, oh, I can figure this out. He said because that engages the mind, and the mind looks at things according to how to arrange the various parts. It works logically. And so the mind is problem-oriented. And when it's problem-oriented, you will never, ever arrive at the proper understanding. The real understanding comes not through intellect, but through the intuition of the soul. And so the soul nature, Swami went on to say, through superconsciousness or intuition, we can arrive at a place where we know the answer, because the answer that we're looking for, that we're going to figure out through problem consciousness, that answer is already there. Our soul already knows the answer. And through intuition, it just arrives, Swami called it, as a downflow of intuitive understanding. Sometimes Swami would ask us to be with him when he counseled people. And quite often somebody would ask him something, and he would say, I don't know, and he'd get halfway through, let me think about it or meditate on it. And he said, then the answer would come to him. Well, it didn't come by logic. It came because his mind either was already knowing the answer, or it was thinking logically for a little bit, and then it switched into intuitive, and the answer just came. And he would give the answer or the advice to people. And so it's very, very important to understand that intellectual knowledge is not necessarily wisdom. Wisdom comes from intuitive understanding. And so that intuitive understanding is what we need to work toward. So how do we get wisdom? How do we get there? Because if we know that that wisdom comes from knowing who we are, how do we get to know who we are? Well, the first way is by experience, because that's the way karma works. That's why we keep incarnating and incarnating and incarnating, is because gradually we gain experiences, and experiences, when you do something wrong, when you do something that is unwise, you suffer. And so you want to avoid that, and so you kind of slowly work through the ooze of your subconscious mind, and you meander toward not causing yourself pain over and over again. In fact, there's a wonderful joke. It isn't quite a joke. There was an old radio program, probably from the 1940s or 1950s, and there was this kind of older man who was the mentor, and then this younger guy who was always getting himself in trouble. And one time he came to the older man and he said, "You always know what to do. You have such good judgment. How do you have such good judgment?" The old mentor said, "Well, my son, good judgment is born of experience." And the young guy says, "How do you get experience?" "Bad judgment." Yeah, everybody's nodding. Been there, done that. Again and again, our bad judgment causes us pain, and gradually we work our way toward acquiring some better judgment, if not yet quite good judgment. Because, as we've just heard, good judgment comes only from understanding ourselves as a soul. Good judgment comes only as knowing ourself as an expression of these qualities and not anything else. I'll just read Prem Shanti and Om Prakash. Every year they give a little calendar that has quotes from the autobiography of a yogi. And we love it. It's like taking a morning vitamin of spirituality or wisdom. And so I don't know how they did it, but this morning was absolutely perfect for today's talk. So in the autobiography, they probably thought this through, and it wasn't from problem consciousness. It was intuitively drawn. Anyway, you remember the story in the autobiography where Master was meditating, and then he had this experience where he was in the body of a sailor in, it would have been World War I. And then he came out of that body and then was back in. It says, I rocked to and fro, inhaling and exhaling, to ensure myself that I was alive. Amidst these self-congratulations again, I found my consciousness transferred to the captain's dead body by the gory shore. Utter confusion of mind came upon me. Lord, I prayed, am I dead or alive? Because he was actually experiencing this. A dazzling play of light filled the whole horizon. A soft, rumbling vibration formed itself into words. That's Om. What has life or death to do with light? In the image of my light I have made you. The relativities of life and death belong to the cosmic dream. Behold your dreamless being. Awake, my child, awake. Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to wake up and get into the fact that we're light, or we're joy, or we're any of these universal qualities. So when we, in meditation, begin to feel one of these universal qualities, that's why Master said, don't contain it in your egoic self. Let it expand and expand and expand until it becomes your sense of self-identification. And so, one of the ways that we move toward wisdom is by experience. A second way, Swami said, and I want to read this quote. Swami said, wisdom has two requirements. One, withdraw from sense objects, and moreover from the senses themselves. And two, remain merged in the consciousness of God as the most desirable of all goals. See, our mind is contained by our likes and our dislikes, what we're reaching out for. Now, we've all heard that God gives us free will. So we have the freedom to act with bad judgment, to make mistakes, to gain that experience. But if you drill down a little bit, free will, what does that mean? Will, Master defined as desire plus energy directed toward a goal. So our free will is basically, we have the freedom to desire whatever we want to desire within certain constraints, because if you're, a slug crawling across the concrete, you might desire to get off of that hot surface, but you're not going to desire a Mercedes-Benz. So according to our level of consciousness, but we're always driven by the desire to have something more, to want something more. And basically, we're also driven by everything, by three basic desires of security or trying to perpetuate our life. And that translates on a human level to having possessions that allow us to do that, to pleasure, and to power. Those three elements of the lower chakras, generally speaking, with 100 million different variations, form the matrix of desires. But we have the freedom, the free will, to desire anything that we want. And so what Swami is saying here is that we have to remain merged in the consciousness of God as the most desirable of all goals. Because if we don't desire God, then we're going to desire some aspect of delusion. And that will just keep us on the revolving wheel of consciousness. And then finally, Swami also said that wisdom comes from a combination of pure discrimination and pure feeling. These are the two aspects by which we interact with nature. We've actually feeling, Master called it primordial feeling nature that resides in the heart area. That if we can purify that feeling, then we will begin to automatically move in the direction that we want to move in. And then discrimination comes at this center. So working a little more broadly, the heart center is the center of feeling, but it's also the center of likes and dislikes, desires, and it's the center of love, which joins things together. And the spiritual eye is the combination of joy, that's where joy resides, pure discrimination resides there, the light of God resides there, it's the position of the guru in our body, one might say. And so all of these are combined. And so Swami said we have to have both of those functioning together in order to have wisdom. So if you're working with another person, or if you're going to a person for advice, for goodness sake, go to somebody that's got both of those aspects active and balanced, because otherwise they won't have wisdom. They might be very clever, but they won't be able to intuitively understand how to advise, or you won't be able to intuitively understand the person that you're trying to advise. So these are, generally speaking, how we acquire wisdom. But because we know the goal now, to get back to our soul nature, we kind of understand the pathway there. But what do we do in the meantime? You know, we aren't at that goal yet, and we forget the pathway. That's what gets us into trouble. If we could just remember to intuitively connect with our higher self, we wouldn't meander so much, but we forget. So what do we do in the meantime? Well, first of all, understand that your free will is not free. It is highly, highly constrained by karmic tendencies. And so question as soon as you begin to think you want to do something or want to go in this way, or especially if you're feeling that little sense of rebellion where I've got the right to do whatever I want to do. That's the little bird in the rebellious phase saying, what else is wisdom if not to keep what is mine for myself? That resonate with anything that you read in the news these days? That's the rebellious phase. Understand that most of what you're thinking comes from that rebellious phase. So you need to try to tune in to something higher. Especially you need to tune in to the wisdom that comes from the Guru. Because the Guru represents the guide that is sent to each of us from God Himself in order to, He lives in the knowledge that He is a soul united with God. He vibrates that. And so by connecting with the Guru, by prayer and attunement and study, but most of all by self-offering, open your heart to me and I will enter and take charge of your life. That is what the Guru says to us, meaning take charge of our life by helping us attune our individual free will with the will of God and His representative, the Guru. And so, most important of all is attuning ourselves to the consciousness of the Guru. And finally, when we've attuned ourselves to the Guru and he's suggested something to do, we have to have the self-discipline that undertakes that practice that he's suggested. Now, we have the whole week to explore the suggestions of the Guru, because it's going to be on the wisdom of Paramhansa Yogananda. And we're in an environment is very important. We're in an environment that draws us into alignment with the Guru. And if we stick with that process, we will at least be on our way to true wisdom.
So, again, welcome, friends. And I also want to give a special hola to our Spanish-speaking guests who have come from, please stand, who have come from all over the Spanish-speaking world. Thank you. And Bhakti Marg and Shama are simultaneously translating for them back in the recording booth. But thank you for joining us. And we hope you have a wonderful week. So, to continue on this theme, living in the wisdom of Paramhansa Yogananda, first I want to share, I'll give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about. What, how, and why. What is, Jyotish shared one perspective, I'll share another. What is the wisdom of Yogananda? How do we live in that wisdom? And why should we do it? So, first of all, I think to say it's a misnomer, it's a false statement to say the wisdom of Paramhansa Yogananda, and I think he would be the first to deny it. It's not his wisdom. It's the wisdom of the Vedas. It's the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, of the Bible, of Buddha, of every religious expression from time immemorial teach the same truths and are drawing us to the same wisdom. And what is the core of that? Well, that this world is not what it seems. This world is, in India they call it Maya. It is an illusion, it is a dream. And as long as we run after it, grasping happiness from this world, as the Gita says, false and fleeting, we will forever be unfulfilled. We will forever be always, like Master used that illustration of the little donkey with the carrot tied to a pole on his head. We will forever be trying to reach the carrot of happiness in the material world. And it's always that distance away, because it would be like trying to satisfy your hunger by looking at a picture of a beautiful meal. That's what this world is. It's an illusion. It's an image of true fulfillment. And we can't get there from here. There's a wonderful joke that just came to mind of this tourist that was lost in the state of Maine. There's a lot of jokes about the Maine farmers. We've been in Maine. I'm not sure if it's accurate or not. But this man is driving, and he comes to a farmer standing by his field, and he said, "I'm trying to get to this town, but I can't figure out how to get there," before GPS. But let's face it, GPS is not infallible anyway, if we all know. But the farmer thinks, and he says, okay, you want to get there, you take this road, go straight, and then at the first fork, you make a right. And then the farmer said, no, that won't work. Okay, you go straight, and then when you come to the first fork, keep going. And then he paused and said, no, that won't work either. And then he goes on and on like this for a while, and then the farmer looks at him and goes, you can't get there from here. And that's what the wisdom of Yogananda teaches us. You can't find the fulfillment you're looking for by seeking it in this world, false and fleeting, because it's an illusion. I think most of us have been on to come to Yogananda's teachings. We have been on the spiritual path in lifetimes before. I remember as quite a small child, I would have a reoccurring dream. And this is how, in the mind of a 3-year-old child, the wisdom of Vedanta was translated. And in the dream, there would be this beautiful ice cream soda with whipped cream and chocolate and cherries, and I would reach out for it. But it would always just melt in my hands, and I couldn't get it. And I would wake up, repeatedly I had this dream, and I would wake up thinking, I can't get that, I can't reach it. But that's from an experience from the past, or I'm sure I was striving for some goal in this world, and maybe even I got my hands on it, but then it was nothing. It was just nothing. And so the wisdom of Yogananda starts from that point. This world is not real, it's an illusion, and if we keep trying to wring from that cloth some drop of fulfillment, we will be forever frustrated. So then, how therefore, given that, how do we live the wisdom of Yogananda? And there's 2 main points to this topic. The first is to cut away everything from your life that does not further your goal of finding God. That's pretty brutal, but the more you walk on the path, the more you just say, I don't need that. This can go. And so look at all the aspirations in your life, the things that it's not that you just sit and meditate all the time, but what are you putting before God? What desires? What motivation? What plans? And everything that is a stumbling block, get rid of it. Why? Why do you want to keep it? It's like you're working at cross purposes with yourself. Swami used to love to tell a joke about a young soldier who was at a training camp, and he began to behave in a very strange way. And he would walk around the camp, and he would look at the ground, and every time he'd see a piece of paper or a piece of trash, he'd pick it up and he'd say, this isn't it. This isn't it, this isn't it. And everyone, what's wrong with this guy? And he just did it for days and days. And finally his officer, superior officer, asked him to go see the medical advisor, the psychiatrist. And he goes into the psychiatrist's office, and he still keeps picking up the papers. This isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. And finally the psychiatrist asked him a number of questions, and he said, I think this life isn't really for you. I'm going to write you a medical discharge. And he hands it to the young soldier, and he looks at it and he says, this is it. So we need to, and again, Swami told that story, and it seems superficial and light, but this is the essence of jnana yoga, the yoga of discrimination and wisdom. Neti neti is the catchphrase, not this, not that. And so to live, how do we live the teachings of Yogananda, the wisdom? Discrimination, and make the choices in your actions, in your words, in your planning, in the directions you're choosing in your life. Will this further me in my search for God, or will it take me backwards, or it will just be treading water? And in fact, Swami said there's no treading water on the spiritual path. You're either moving forward or you're moving backward. So be motivated. Look at your life. Do some good, be a good gardener. Pull out the weeds of useless habits, useless acquisitions, useless interactions with people in the world, and just keep it simple. Keep it simple. God is simple, Sri Yukteswar said. Everything else is complex, and we make our lives so complex. And so just to begin letting those things go that no longer serve us. And the more we do, there's that beautiful story. The more we do, the happier we are. There's the beautiful story of St. Francis of Assisi, who most of you know of him. He was the great medieval saint who really, the church at that time, the Catholic Church, had become more of just a hierarchy of an organization. And he, because of his great devotion and communion with Christ, he revived the true essence of the church. And he was just a little beggar. He had nothing, the little raggedy robe, no shoes, little baking bowl maybe, and a Bible. And one day he was walking along the road, and he saw a very poor beggar woman, an old woman, and she said, "Please, sir, give me something. I haven't eaten for so long." And he looked, and he had nothing of value to give her. And he said, "Well, I'll give you my Bible." He would read from the Bible every day. And that was all he had that was anything of value. And so the woman said, thank you, sir. You are a true person of God." And she went on her way. And then Francis sat down and he cried. He said, "Lord, I've given away your word. I have nothing left now." And Christ appeared to him and said, "Francis, you don't need my words on ink on paper. My words are in your heart." And so the more we give, the more we just feel like, even with our spirituality, if we try to keep it to ourselves, we won't get the same results. But if we just, like Bhakti Marg and Shama right now, translating, I'm sure it would be much easier for them to sit and enjoy the class. But here they are, just giving. And the channel is blessed by what flows through it. So consider what you can get rid of. And always ask the question. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, before you speak or act, ask yourself, will this action accrue more karma, or will it free me from karma? It's actually a very nice way to live. Very nice. Because in the complexity of human interaction, we're faced with so many decisions. Should I say this? Should I not say this? Should I do this? Should I not do this? But if you just simply ask, will this action or statement accrue more karma, or will it free me of karma? It becomes very simple. So then, the second point in how we live the wisdom of Paramhansa Yogananda is to look at whatever comes in life, and this harkens back to calmness, and to remain centered in the self, no matter what happens. And Swami Kriyananda was just such a marvelous example of this. And it wasn't And we saw him in many different circumstances where he applied this in different ways. And it was so beautiful to behold. It's not just, I am forever calm and centered, but it's responsive to the needs of the crisis or the difficult situation you're in. I remember, I'll share two stories, one quite beautiful, one quite not so beautiful, but that to watching Swami live in that centered wisdom. Once, early years of Ananda, Swami was he was invited to give a talk up at Mount Shasta in California, and he invited a group of us to join him. This was the first time I had ever been on a little trip with Swami. And he said, we're going to go camping on Mount Shasta and hike, and then I'll give this talk. And I thought, oh, this is wonderful. And indeed it was. But one day, it was the last day we were going to be camping on the mountain, he said, let's walk up this trail, go to a higher level on the mountain. And we began walking, but it was the one day of the year where the monarch butterflies hatch out from high up on Mount Shasta, tens of thousands of them, and they float down on the air currents. And the air current happened to be on the trail we were walking on. And so there we were walking through, it was so thick you couldn't see. And Swami, he was at the head of the line. And again, he didn't, oh my God, this is terrible. No one wanted to hurt the monarchs, but we didn't want to be turned away. So he, with his calm centeredness, created an aura of light. You could almost see it, a cloud of light, and the butterflies just flew all around us. It was so magnificent. And I just felt so blessed that day, just part from being with him, but part just feeling how to relate to the world, always from your calm center in the most appropriate way. And then, fast forward some years later, Swami asked Jyotish and I and a few others to move to San Francisco to help start work in the Bay Area. And it would not have been my first choice to do that. We had a 4-year-old son at the time, and it had its challenges, but we trusted him. And we did what he asked because he knew he wouldn't ask anything that wasn't for our highest good. So we went. It was in the spring, and Swami gave lectures all summer and to try to magnetize the area and draw people. And then it was finally the day came when he would be leaving and coming back to Ananda village, and Jyotish and I and a few others were left in charge there. And Swami said, well, let's celebrate. This has been a wonderful summer. Let's go out to dinner. We'll have a nice dinner, and then we'll go to a movie. And he looked in the paper, and he saw that one of his favorite movies, the old version of Pride and Prejudice with Greer Garson and Laurence Olivier, was playing in a little art theater, movie theater. And so we had a wonderful dinner, and then we parked the cars. We couldn't get too close to the theater. It was Saturday night. We parked them several blocks away, and we watched the movie. Everything had been a splendid evening. And then we came out. The movie was over, and then the world changed. It was Saturday night. It was close to midnight, and we were in the red light district of San Francisco, and we had to walk many blocks to the car. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And people were selling everything that could pull you into darkness. But Swami, again, just like with the butterflies, these were different kinds of butterflies. He was at the head of the line. He didn't put an aura of light. Well, there was light, but it was different. It was like, when the pioneers were coming across the country and they were trying to break the prairie into farmland, and the sod was like the roots were several feet thick. And they had something called sod busters, which were these heavy, heavy metal plows with a sharp point that broke up the roots of the sod so that they could get in there and plow and sow the fields. Well, Swami was the sod buster. He walked through that field of human depravity and suffering like a sodbuster, and he broke the roots. And I dare say everyone that we passed, I bet their lives were changed. And I just felt this force of energy centered in himself. All of these qualities, power and calmness and light and love and joy and wisdom. It was whoa, we went through it. And we lived and we got to our cars. And I couldn't see Swami because I was a few people back in the line. But I wouldn't have been surprised if his feet weren't touching the ground as we walked through the valley of the shadow of death. And we got to the car, and then he left the next day. But we remained in San Francisco for nearly 3 years after that. And no matter where we went, no matter what we encountered, I always felt his presence breaking through that field of delusion. That was this parting gift to us. It wasn't the dinner, it wasn't the movie. It was break through materialistic consciousness and stay centered in yourself. And so how do we live the wisdom of Yogananda? By eliminating everything that is a distraction in our lives, and by finding a way in, whether it's a lovely experience or a terrible experience, just to remain centered in the self. And then all the rest falls into place. We can live the wisdom in that way. And then finally, why do we want to live the wisdom? I think it's pretty evident from what we've said, but I'll just add a few thoughts. There are certain fundamental drives in every human being. Charles Darwin, the great evolutionist, said that the basic instinct of all humanity is the instinct for survival. And Master said, yes, that's one of the basic instincts, existence. But he said, Master said, mere existence isn't enough. We want to be, what if we're existing, but we're on life support, we're in a coma, is that what we want? No, we want existence, but we want awareness that we are existing, and continuing to exist with awareness. But what if we have these two drives, where we have perpetual existence, we have awareness, but we're in a prison cell? So we also need one of the drives. It's more than just existence, more than just awareness. It's joy and happiness in that. And Master says, bringing it all back home, he said, this is why we will never be satisfied until we find God, because these three drives, existence, consciousness, happiness, are Satchidananda, are what God's nature is. And so no matter how much we run away from it, it's inborn in ourselves, ever existent, ever conscious, ever new joy. That's what God is. And that's the motivating force in each one of us. So run away if we will, and we do it for lifetimes. We will always come back, because those are the three fundamental drives of human nature. And in that, God dwells within us, and the more we try to live the wisdom of Yogananda, the more we will be able to feel those Satchidananda, from joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I will melt again. So, my friends, let us live according to the best and highest we can see, and then give the rest to God and Guru, and they will bring us home. God bless you.
Come gather round, we'll sing the blues away. Dawn now is breaking, and the mountains say, it's only light can make the darkness run. Lift up your head, greet the rising sun. Greet the rising sun. We'll chant of battles won, shots not of anger. Joy will be our gun. Before the light, the veils of sorrow rend. In ecstasy, all delusions end.